Sick. Boom. Boom. Well, I mean, I must say that was some of the best speaking I've ever done. I don't think I don't think I'd ever be able to recreate the amazing speech I just gave. It was inspirational, seriously. It was like on Independence Day when they go fight the aliens. It was like that motivational speech that the president of the universe gives. Yeah, I can never top that. I don't know. I think I should just end the stream because I've already said the most amazing thing. This is the one day that I actually start the stream exactly on time, and I'm just explaining why that's the case for 2 minutes, and I'm basically miming the whole thing. Fine, fine. Yeah, it's been a crazy. Well, it's been a busy weekend. I've had a good weekend doing lots of personal sort of stuff, including going out late last night, meeting some friends. That was awesome. I also, been running around with my son today, which has been good, but I literally didn't have that much time to prepare the show. So I really appreciate everybody who makes it in here without me doing the proper notifications. But this is also why I like to keep my life simple by just doing this at the same time every week. It is cold. Everywhere else in Japan is colder and is buried under meters of snow. Tokyo is sunny and beautiful, but it's dry. And if you're in Tokyo or even anywhere else in Japan, this is where you really need to have a humidifier, which I have mine going over there at the moment. About 3/4 of a tank at the moment. So hopefully that'll keep me going till morning. So yes, the room is hydrated, but humidified. But it's been free. The wind is freezing cold at the moment in Tokyo. So we're definitely peak winter at the moment. But hope everybody is happy and doing well wherever they are. I can't believe the first time I start the show actually on time. I've got the music microphone still going. I hadn't selected the proper microphone. So what can I say? First one in the comments this week, Potluck Sushi. Potluck Sushi, the J Vlogger extraordinaire, I should say. Actually, I should have used him by his birth name. Excellent, as always, to have you here in the chat. And yes, totally verifying what I just said. Cold night in Tokyo, but Team Toads Tokyo are feeling quite cozy. Well, I'm glad that you're feeling. I'm also feeling cozy. I'm under the heater and I've got the humidifier. You got to have both. You can't just have the heater. The secret is a humidifier, because otherwise you're going to dry out your throat and get sick. And that's how everybody gets you. But yes, Tokyo is colder. Everywhere else is colder. Coming in second, DJ Sunny Side Up. Also coming in second this week. I got one back. The Sunny Side Up's been kicking my ass the last few weeks in these DJ Mash battles. So I got one back this week. I'm happy, but I'm also very excited and looking forward to what Sunny picks as the new track for this week. I know you'll message me later and maybe you haven't decided yet, but feel free to just announce here if you've got an idea. I got a little bit of my mojo back on the mashing this week, but DJ Sunny Side Up, he's been bringing it hard lately. I was actually I kind of made it this week thinking, I might not ever win again, but that's okay because I'm enjoying this, and that is the attitude we always take to it. We're having fun and we are always getting better. So thanks to everybody who supports us by checking out our mash battles and blindly deciding which is which, even if you can kind of tell which is which. I appreciate people still voting, not for the obvious better looking person, but for the one that they actually like the best, even if it's obvious. And it doesn't have to be me, although I'm glad when it is. So anyway, looking forward to the next mash battle. DJ Sunny Side Up. I got one back, but I think so far 2026 you've been kicking my ass. So very glad about that. We've got Cobra Tension here. I guess that makes you third. Nice to have you in here from Germany. I hope you're all doing okay and better than I don't know how it is down in Kochi, but it certainly is cold. It's cold throughout Japan at the moment. Hope you're doing well. We got Shubas in here. Never fear. Glad to have you back. And hope that you're doing well. It's great to see everybody in the sane and stable world that we are in. Man, it's actually with all the Greenland and Venezuela stuff, it's kind of a wonder that I know that America is definitely targeting the canal, but at this rate, I don't know if America's going to declare Canada a state. I mean, what does that make Panama? Kind of a new Puerto Rico or something? I don't know. I'm surprised you guys might be all getting back into that soon. We're not going to talk about that because I don't know anything about America, and I wish what I know, I wish I didn't most of the time. We're talking Japan stuff tonight, and thank you everybody for keeping me company. We've got our man in from Greece, -9 degrees, 1 minute. And then 17 degrees. What the hell? That's some crazy weather there, Black Tengu, Japan Monomore. Wow, I hope you are both keeping cool and refreshed and warm at the same time, because as much as I'm complaining about the temperatures, it gets down. We did have a day the other day where it was -4 in the morning, which is crazy. It gets down to like -1, but it doesn't really get down to -4 very often. So yeah, we've had some really cold days, but yeah, that's some crazy stuff there. We've got a warm greeting from Tadom. Great to have you in here, Tadom. Tadom, as I said in our messages, and by the way, Tadom, he asked me for my running BPM mix the other day, and I sent it to him. And yeah, really, really cool to hear that you're getting into running. And actually, I actually made an attempt when I was running around the palace at the start of the week. I actually recorded myself talking about running, going around the palace, but it was so dark and I was using my phone. Everything was blurry and horrible and unwatchable. There are actually some great YouTube channels, and I'm kind of tempted, if I can just get a roll going into a routine of making, I really do want to make running videos and advice for people starting running to avoid the mistakes that I made. And also just because I'm enjoying watching so many running YouTubers lately, particularly I'm enjoying, I forget the name of him, but he's like a 68-year-old former professional in Japan marathon runner. He used to run for a company team, and he's 68, but he runs exactly the same pace that I sort of do. And he's going for his 50th marathon. He's fantastic because he gives a lot of really great advice for like starting from scratch again. And proper marathon training, and Ran to Japan is an awesome Japanese channel. But yeah, I want to put in all the advice that I would give, for example, for you, Tadom, including you asked for some cadence mixes, 150, 155, 160, and I love getting homework that relates to making music mixes. I was hoping I'd get one done today, but I didn't have the time, but I am going to, next chance I get to sit down. Yeah, I'm gonna make you some custom mixes and put them up there for other people who want to run. I was actually running on the treadmill yesterday. And you can actually tell, one way that you can tell someone's a proper, like a college runner. I live in a district with a lot of universities, and there's a lot of college competitive runners. And so and you can always tell who the competitive ones are because they run with such high cadence. I was running 180 BPM. I was basically dancing to Dutch Gabba hardcore techno on the treadmill. And this little girl comes up beside me, and she's running more slowly than me, but her cadence is like way above. And I actually increased mine to 185, and she was still bouncing along like 190, 195, which is what basically it's the reason that those Kenyan runners all look so comfortable, like running faster than sprinters, is because they naturally just run at that. But you can't go straight up to that. You have to build it up in small increments. And I'm thinking I might even try increasing my own cadence after sort of seeing some people doing that. But where you're at 150, do 150, listen to my 150 mix, and I can send you every couple of weeks a 160, 155, 165, all of those. It's really, really fun. Anyway, so I was actually super stoked that you made that request. 23 degrees in Panama. Everybody, we're all moving to Panama. I think that's the solution to all of our problems. Plus, I mean, the coffee and the weather, that's actually like summer in New Zealand. It's pretty much constantly 23 degrees. So there we go. Believe in yourself. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. Hope you're having a good time there in Canada. Man, how cold is it in Canada? Plus, if you're on the east coast of like America and Canada, I know that you're having a really crazy storm at the moment. So I hope everyone over there is doing okay. I saw the warnings at work. Yuri the best, in from Ukraine, in from Kyiv, I believe. Great to have you in here every week again. And apologies for the sound issues. It's the technical issues on the show, as you know. They're not they're a feature, not a bug. They're part of what everybody comes here for, the technical features. What can we say? Aaron, the moderator, great to have you in here as always, and thank you for flagging all over the place. Indeed, no sound. It was me. It was me. So yeah, we've got Sadiq in here from Florida, which I believe even Florida has been cold at the moment. Hope you're doing great, Sadiq. Great to have you in here, as always. Speeding up, we've also got Mulberry Pie. Great to see you. How's it? Are you actually, whereabouts are you located? I know you're from South Africa, right? But where are you actually located right now? Great to have you in here. Carl, you're in Kawasaki. You just said it's snow free. That's right, because you're in Kanto, so we get all the good work. But yeah, when everything freezes, it definitely sucks at all. And that's right, the trains all stop. Tokyo is one of those cities that, falls apart with like 1 centimeter of snow, while the rest of the country is getting on with it under meters of snow. But that's what you do. Greatest speech to humanity, lost forever. That is exactly what happened. You better believe it. Anyway, I'll never be able to recreate it. What can I say? It looks like, unless my comments refresh, it looks like we are now caught up. Much appreciated on the MP3 and motivation. Yes, indeed. South Florida, man, if we're not going to Panama, South Florida is probably the second place I'd want to go there. Where Aaron is, spare a thought for Aaron. Oh my God, minus 13 degrees. Thank you for converting to Celsius, by the way. I really appreciate that. When Americans say, you know, I mean, what is that, about 10 or 15 Fahrenheit? I mean, that's crazy, but I can't really convert it. I mean, as I probably just demonstrated. So, oh man, that's really rough. Mulberry Pie is moving to Sendai in the spring, but still in Kawasaki. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Sendai is one of the considered, I mean, they still are recovering from the quake and tsunami, obviously, from 2011. But even with that, I think up there with Sapporo, Fukuoka, Sendai, they are considered the best places to live in Japan, and particularly if you're there in spring. Sendai, famous for the beef up there as well, the gyutang, lots of great food, great mountain, mountains and ocean, everything like that. That's a great place to go live. So, yeah. Wow, and I thought it was cold in Indiana, right? Where Aaron is. But up in Canada, of course, southeastern Ontario, it is minus 17 degrees Celsius. Again, yeah, I can appreciate much more. That is seriously cold. So please do take good care of yourselves. I think Aaron said it best. And let's dive into the topics. I've been sort of actually checking the news more often during the week this week, and I've been sort of posting about news on an ongoing basis. One bit of news I didn't put in, but when I was listening to the weekly update by Langley Esquire, just on politics and so on, particularly now that the snap election, Japan is having a snap election in, I think, February 8th, Sunday, February 8th, I think is the day. I might be wrong about that actually, but anyway, snap election is coming and it's only a couple of weeks away. The government's popular. They basically, while everybody is sort of liking the new prime minister, they're deciding to try to take advantage and increase their majority if they can. So there's one story that he was talking about a new story that came out of Taiwan, that people said that Takaichi's father or grandfather served as was a war criminal in Taiwan. Now that's interesting. My software has frozen. Is my camera frozen? Is my computer frozen? Okay, the side thing is working, so maybe it's my camera. Let's change cameras. Okay, so that's working. So it was actually my mobile phone. But also comments are not moving, which just must be because I'm so not interesting. There we go. Frozen. Just like the movie. I think that was actually a reaction. My camera was reacting to Believe in Yourself, saying it was minus 17 degrees Celsius. And my camera just froze at even hearing that. So there we go. Wow, this has been a crazy day. So anyway, they found out that there was a story that went around. It turned out it's kind of being, it's a false news story. It was the name of someone else that they attributed to being Takaichi's, I think, grandfather, as a war criminal who served in Taiwan. And it was kind of spread around by Chinese state media. So that was an interesting thing anyway. Yeah. See, these technical issues, I'm so used to them that I can actually, fairly comfortably resolve them on the fly. It's just I can't seem to stop them from happening in the first place. But I don't know. I think it's a good sort of a skill. So anyway, we are definitely doing this because I am under-rested. I'm definitely going to sleep by midnight, but do come and hang out with me for the after party after the show. Thanks again, DJ Sunny Side Up, for an awesome MASH battle this week, and can't wait to find out what the track next week is going to be. We've got the winning track up on Tokyo Digital Crew. And yeah, basically, as usual, elections in Japan, we've sort of talked about it. There have been various interesting things happening. So yes, indeed, Japan Monomura. I mean, the German war criminals were working for America as well, and serving in the West and East German governments. So all of that, they had all of that. But yes, coming up to the election, I suppose as usual, in most countries, they'd have what's the main, thing of the election. Is it immigration? Is it Brexit? Is it the economy? Is it the cost of living crisis? Is it, is somebody going to bring in a package of social welfare promises? And no, people have said, well, we have a new brand and we really like our new logo and we think that you should do it. And you should vote for us because of our logo. And we all believe in making the society better for the people. And we promise that you will get more money and you'll have to pay us less tax and we'll make it happen. Don't worry. And basically all the main parties have promised to cut value-added tax, the sales tax in Japan, which is currently it's 10%. But basically, because it's so unpopular, the sales taxes, taxes on goods and services taxes are, I think, the most efficient sort of taxes. So, for example, a 10% goods and services tax is basically the same as like a 30%, income tax. So it's this thing where they're really unpopular because they're on everything, and everyone always does election campaigns where they promise that we're going to increase spending on all the things that we are going to increase spending on, but we're also going to cut our most important sources of revenue for funding all that spending that we're also promising to do. And the LDP normally is much more straightforward, and they literally just send cash to everybody's homes right before elections, because the Japanese government, particularly the LDP, knows how difficult it is when you get into a fight with the Ministry of Finance, and when you say I want you to drop the sales tax or lower it or reduce it on some things, they'll say, fine, we'll just cut all the funding to your home prefecture and pay for it that way. How about that? And basically the Ministry of Finance, which ultimately controls the whole Japanese government, including the elected houses of parliament, you don't normally win fights against the Ministry of Finance. And given that Japan does have by far, I think, at least of OECD countries, it has the highest debt ratio, per capita ratio in the entire world. Takaichi's committing both to increase social welfare spending and committing to increase defense spending. But she's also campaigning saying we're going to cut sales tax on all food. And after being told that was impossible, she's saying, okay, we'll do it for 2 years. So we'll do it that way. And all the other opposition parties are saying that, we're going to they're all promising to lower sales tax with no real clear idea how they're going to be able to do that without cutting a lot of social services and health and social welfare and whatever. But that's pretty much the only thing that the election is being done on at the moment. In terms of the participants, the Constitutional Democratic Party is trying desperately to turn it into a two-party system, as they've been trying to do since they were established. And now that they've joined up with Komeito, which is basically the political wing of the Soka Gakkai religion, and now I don't know what you even describe them as now that they've literally merged into a single party. But one thing that is interesting is that the Soka Gakkai religious group did a lot of the election campaigning for the LDP in previous elections, and a lot of those seats that the LDP has are the result of Soka Gakkai agreeing basically to not run anybody against and have all their members campaign for the LDP person. And those campaigners and so on, election workers, are not going to be around for the LDP anymore. A lot of the opposition parties have always been targeting the Komeito because they get most of their votes in the proportional votes. This is Osaka Japan Innovation Party, Ishinokai. They've been campaigning to reduce the number of seats in parliament by 10%, and they want to reduce the proportional representation seats to get Soka Gakkai out of the government, or to reduce their influence and to increase their own influence. The government hasn't followed through on cutting those seats because effectively it's the government promising to fire 10% of their own people. So they're not doing that, but this is what the Osaka party is going for. The opposition parties are saying that they want to cut seats as well, pretty much exactly the same as the government. Nobody's really differentiated. There's no clear real policy difference at all, other than, they're promising just to basically spend more and collect less taxes on different things. But there's no particular policy difference that's really emerged on anything. And then you've got the communists and the socialists, who are basically sort of disappeared and not really relevant anymore. So, Yuri the Best asking, what's the Soka Gakkai religion even about? It's basically a kind of, in the same way as, they have those evangelical Christian religions, those new religions. They're Christian, but, they've got some sort of charismatic leader who's got their special, brand of both. Um, I mean, a little, yeah, they are nominally Buddhist in the same way as you have evangelical Christians. The thing is that, it's a bit like the Church of Latter-day Saints in America. They call themselves a church, but they're really, I don't know even how they do with Christianity per se. I think they say that their book is added onto the Bible, and Soka Gakkai is like that with Buddhism. They're both super salesy and very pro expanding, the reach of their religion, and they're very much into recruitment, which makes them a lot like evangelicals. But also, a lot of the religion is based around the ideas of a specific leader of the party, of the group who founded it, which makes it maybe a little bit more like Mormons in the last century. And like 1 in 10 Japanese are a member. It's not really the mainstream Buddhism. It's an offshoot, but it's huge. It's a very, very big group. It's like 1 in 10 Japanese. I think the biggest Buddhist group in Japan is like 1 in 3 Japanese, at least in terms of who takes care of the funerals and all of that. But it's basically a big sort of evangelical Buddhist group. And from that, they also have always been involved in politics, even though the Constitution bans religious groups from directly participating in politics in Japan. However, the Japanese legal code also prohibits gambling, but there's pachinko parlors on every corner. In Japan, prostitution is illegal, but sex services are like everywhere, including Japan is like the porn making capital of Asia. So Japan has lots of these rules against doing things that it also completely just openly ignores, including the ban on participation of religious groups in politics. So yeah, anyway, Dan H is in here with a huge squirrel. What are we going to do here? Talking about the finance ministry. How is Saitama any different from Smotrich? Well, that's pretty good, because I don't know what Smotrich is. With her views on Japan's Koreans. Okay, I feel like I need to check. Who is Smotrich? And are you referring to Saitama, finance minister of Israel? Well, okay, I think I've heard of this guy. He's like the crazy radical who wants to annex like the occupied territories, right? So you're talking Saitama is the ministry, the vice minister of finance, right? Minister. Right. No, Katayama Satsuki? Saitama? Who are you referring to as Saitama? And whose views on the Koreans? I'm sorry, you'll need to elaborate more on the views of Koreans. Look, I don't know anything about like the Minister of Finance in Israel other than that he's a radical Orthodox. And yeah, I'm certainly you talk about not poking things that probably provoke strong reactions that I don't know a lot about, and certainly Israel is a strong topic there. In terms of the far right in Israel, I mean, I don't think there's anything in Japan remotely like the far right in Israel. They're pro-annexing, land that never under any form belongs to Israel, and at the same time they also advocate for their members not participating in the army that has to do all the defending of the radicals that go out and cause all the problems. I don't think there's anything even close to the far right of Israel anywhere in Japan, even in the far right. And in terms of like anti-Korean attitudes, I don't know. With her view on, I'm sorry, I don't. Satsuki Katayama. Okay, yeah. If you're talking about Satsuki Katayama, I haven't actually heard a lot about her in a long time. Also, she's from Saitama, but yeah, I know about her, but I don't know much about her specific views on Koreans. It's very 1990s to be paranoid about Koreans. At the moment, Koreans are like the last thing that Japan's kind of forgotten. Koreans were the target of a lot of hate for a long time because of the size of the North Korean community in Japan and the fact that it was considered sort of ethnocentric, racist, right-wing conspiracy theories that the North Koreans could possibly be abducting Japanese people and carrying out spy operations and assassinations and stuff in Japan and smuggling methamphetamine and counterfeit money and running drug operations and so on in Japan and gambling operations. And yet it turned out to all actually be true. And the result of that is that between that and how long most of those North Koreans have been in Japan, that a lot of those schools have disappeared. A lot of those North Koreans have become Japanese. It turned out North Korea was actually that bad, and South Korea caught some of the hate for it. But right now, all of those right wingers that used to drive in front of the school kids and horrible people that used to go and bully the South Korea, the South Korea, the people who were the most innocent of all of the stuff were the North Koreans in Japan, and they were the targets. But right now, those sound trucks, they're targeting China, and they're targeting. Well, I suppose the extremists are going into places like Kawasaki, and they're going into places like Kawaguchi, and they're targeting actual Kurdish people, refugees at the moment. That seems to be the flavor of the month. But on their free days, they drive circles around the Russian embassy and the Chinese embassy. Satsuki Katayama, who links with Nippon Kaigi. I mean, Nippon Kaigi as well is still, it's kind of just a super PAC, honestly. I know that Jake Adelstein seems to talk about it like it's some sort of cabal. Of baby eating people that control Japan. But Nippon Kaigi is, while there are some people with some extremely conservative views who are members of it and does represent conservative thought, it is still just fundamentally, what do you call it? It's a Rotary Club for people for conservatives, basically. So, the good news is I can't go any deeper than that on that squirrel because I don't know. What I can certainly say, I think if you take the most anti-Korean, and there are some crazy ones. There's what's the name of the party again? I mean, they've kind of become Sanseito, but before that, there was a group that was doing these active harassment campaigns and political, and they were actually running candidates in Tokyo and getting alarming numbers of votes who were directly harassing Koreans, and they go through Okubo, basically doing provocative stuff. But that's not even close to anything I think in Israel, just for what it's worth. Japan's got problems, but nothing quite on the level of the Middle East, except for the time, of course, that the Japanese Red Army was actively participating in problems in the Middle East. But anyway, we won't go into that. So anyway, the election campaign is once again, it's the election about nothing. And making promises, the few promises that they're making, they absolutely can't follow up on, and there's no policies to speak of. And right now, Sanai Takaichi, mainly thanks to China telling everybody in Japan, we are China, and we're telling you, do not vote for Sanai Takaichi or else we'll be very upset. It has made her popularity. All the prime ministers have been like 30% approval, and now she's like 75% approval, pretty much because China's like Streisanding her to victory. Just the same as whenever Taiwan has an election and China says, you better vote for the KMT or else we'll be very upset. So everybody goes and votes for the Democrats in Taiwan. And the KMT can't win because China keeps endorsing them. She's very popular basically because of accidentally tripping up. So we'll see how that goes anyway. It's only a couple of weeks to go, but there's nothing really to speak of in terms of like meaningful policy debates. Is Trump on the thing, you might ask? Is America joining the Council of Peace or whatever the hell that is? No one gives a shit about America. No one thinks that Japan can really do anything about it. So completely irrelevant. Japan's kind of, you notice Japan was not one of the founding members of the Board of Peace. When everybody's saying, oh, we are definitely joining, or oh, we are not joining, or oh, we are thinking about it, Japan was like, yeah, I'm just going to go put the kettle on. I'll be right back. Which is the correct answer. You don't say anything, right? So anyway, that's what's happening with all of that. We'll see if it becomes more interesting in the next couple of weeks. The main thing is whether the new rebranded constitutional Democrats can actually get anything done at all. But as usual, they're kind of the party about nothing. We'll come to that later on. Gray divorces are increasing in Japan. Gray divorces being an image of old people divorcing, but not necessarily gray people. The definition is people 20 years or more marriage who are divorcing. Interesting stats here. By the way, I actually heard something interesting as well the other day. Actually, Japan, a J-vlogger, what's her name again? She's a Japanese woman who speaks English, and she gives like dating advice for mainly for foreign guys wanting to date Japanese girls, which is a loaded channel, but good on her for going and doing that. But she was actually, I saw it on Instagram or YouTube, and she did some video talking about the divorce thing, asking, is it true that the divorce rate for international marriages in Japan is 50% and, very, very high? And she said, yes, it is, which is how I always understood it. But she also actually followed up. And I don't know if this is true, but she assured everybody this was true. if you break down those international marriages, the majority of those marriages that fall apart are Japanese men and Asian, either East Asian or Southeast Asian women. Those are the majority of international marriages, and those, by and large, do not go well. However, Japanese women and Western men, which is the bias of this particular YouTube channel, bless her, points out that the divorce rate in those is actually 25%, which is actually lower than the Japanese divorce rate. So I even thought myself, and I sometimes say, hey, remember, if you're ever going to get into an international marriage, check that you don't have any legal rights, and remember that the statistics say that you're doomed. And I saw some information during the last week that is actually not true. In fact, you've got a better shot than most Japanese people even do. That said, Japanese people are not doing that well. So, it doesn't mean that you're doing well either necessarily. But yeah, the government collected a whole bunch of statistics on this. And apparently the reasons that people are filing on the divorce. And by the way, the good thing about both getting married and divorcing in Japan is literally going up to the city council, and it's literally like filing a change of address piece of paper. You both have to sign it for it to be official. But when you file the reason, apparently when the divorce is filed by wives, most common reasons are incompatibility with personality, followed by he's not paying living expenses, followed by mental abuse. When it's the man filing, incompatibility with personality, basically irreconcilable differences, main cause, followed by mental abuse is the second most cited cause, and extramarital affairs. That's actually interesting. So it's the women are not citing affairs, the husbands are citing affairs as the main reason. I mean, the numbers are lower, obviously, but anyway, yeah, there's it is sort of a new thing, but I can't. Many people express sentiments such as, I can't wait until my husband is dead, or I do not want to die as his wife, which certainly, rather than accelerating the whole death thing, probably filling out the city council form is a better solution. So that is interesting. There's some things I learned about that, which is sort of new. Japan Monomo, not only have Japanese been living here since the Heian era, most genetic studies pretty much at this point say definitively that the Yayoi people, the people who came into Japan, who brought Buddhism, rice, writing, and all of this into Japan, they pretty much came in from Korea. I mean, not to say that there is a thing that certainly they went through Korea and they came into Japan and they populated Korean Peninsula and Japan. But the point is, those people that came in are now people, modern Koreans are descended from the same people. So yeah, it's not only that they've been here like since Heian era, literally modern Japanese sort of come from there. So yeah, there sort of isn't that much of a difference. Gubris Tenshi, thank you for showing the bright side on the conversation indeed. Yeah, what is my secret for a long-lasting international marriage in Japan? I don't have one. I don't know. You can't see into the future. And honestly, I mean, look, speaking the same, I can certainly say what's the secret for having a terrible international and short-lasting international marriage, but just the absence of negative factors isn't any guarantee of long-term success. At the end of the day, people don't get along, they don't get along. But certainly the things where I've seen couples rush into things where they don't speak the other person's language properly and they have completely misaligned expectations. In terms of the ones that haven't worked out, I can certainly point to those things. Where the men are, where you get in the cases that I've seen of foreign guys marrying Japanese women mainly. This is where it's actually interesting that I've seen a lot of quite successful and fantastic marriages between Western women and Japanese men, and maybe it's because they don't have these cultural expectations. But certainly, when you come in following stereotypes, when Japanese believe. Some Japanese women have this sort of overly gushingly positive impression that all Western men have excellent manners and they're ladies first and they're going to treat you like a princess and they're going to be, hardworking and always do everything for you and all of that. And the men are expecting to have a wife who's going to be subservient and take care of them and, do whatever they want. When you have misaligned expectations like that, accentuated through cultural and linguistic misunderstanding, well, that's how it doesn't work out. The absence of those things, does that guarantee success? Absolutely not. It just means you're back to stage zero of being like a regular Japanese marriage where everybody understands the context, but you still might not get along. So yeah, I can point to factors that screw up those things, but not. I don't know what's the secret sauce to making marriage succeed anyway. Damned if I know. On that bright note, pollen in Japan. So if you're worried about typhoons or earthquakes or bears or all that sort of thing, the good news is you don't have to worry as much because, what is happening here? NHK1 is saying, yes, I've already said this was all okay. Leave me alone. Let me put this back. Boom. Kafun, pollen. In Kansai, if you're in Kansai this year during spring, as you know, Japan is covered in mountains, and those mountains are covered in pine trees that are covered in thick pollen that makes these pollen clouds. If you like being in a flower garden with clouds of pollen and fragrance from pine trees, if you like that, Japan is a paradise. But if you are allergic to pollen and you easily get hay fever, I mean, even I don't get hay fever actually in spring. I get mild hay fever in autumn. I get it from different things. But even if you don't get hay fever, it's just chokingly like the sky is just full of clouds of pollen. And apparently the mountains around Kansai have stored up and ready to go 200 to 300% normal levels of pollen. And all these trees, when the wind starts hitting these trees in spring, they reckon that in Hokkaido there'll be 328% normal pollen. Osaka will have 315%, Nara 312, Kyoto 272. So basically, if you're in all of these places, the other places, Tokushima, Yamagata, Shizuoka, Aichi, Tottori, they're all going to have 2 to 3 times the normal levels of pollen. And I know people who leave Japan during these time periods because they suffer so much. And I know people who come to Japan where they have nothing in the first couple of years, and they react more and more badly to it every year. Tokyo, on the other hand, it's good to be in Tokyo. 87%, i.e. 13% less than usual. Still bad, but Aomori, they're only expecting 44% usual. So it's going to be different in different places. But for people who suffer, and a high percentage of people, it's actually the primary reason that people in Japan wore masks everywhere to start with, because they are literally, we're already used to wearing masks before COVID-19 because the pollen and the hay fever stuff here is so intense. That is a thing. So look out for that this year. If you're not running away from bears, you're definitely running away from the pollen. Record number of 230 people were attacked by bears between April and November last year. Yeah. At first I thought it was a bit of a joke, but actually no, it's kind of out of control. So there we go. Japan's tourism industry, although they're getting tons of tourists, they're increasing hotel prices and everything. Apparently the particularly hotels and stuff are still sort of suffering because they are operating on 7% margins, which I didn't realize. Service industries tend to have at least like 20%, margins for what they do and pay pretty decently. And you'd think, certainly in New Zealand, which when I was there in the 90s, tourism was like a third of the economy. And it was one of those things you learn Japanese because it was like a guarantee of getting a job at the very least in tour guiding or hospitality or something like that. And those were good paying jobs, especially if you're out of college. But in Japan, you think that everyone would be rushing to learn English to get a good job looking after these tourists. But, it's while there is inflation, tourism-driven inflation, the jobs serving tourists, by and large, don't seem to be paying particularly better or well even, and they're not attracting people the way that it really should. I mean, in a functioning economy, supply and demand, there should be all this demand for looking after and tour guiding and taking care of all of these tourists that are coming. Everybody in Japan should be going crazy learning English the way that I was learning Japanese when we were being flooded with Japanese tourists in the 1990s, but kind of not happening. It's kind of like, in spite of the success, I think the industry here is so conservative about increasing prices and adjusting to different realities. But it also, that of course there is this thing where they don't want to make it bad for their traditional Japanese customers. But there again, supply and demand says that if these tourists are coming in here and they're willing to pay more and they're taking up all your resources, they have to charge for it, as much as I hate to say that. But it also means it's also a reflection that Japan is just a fantastic deal if you want to come here on a vacation. So yeah. Anyway, continuing on, sentiment is bearish on public safety. Yeah, another thing, I mean, again, with divorce rates also increasing and marriage rates declining and children rates declining, it turns out more and more Valentine's Day, rather than women going out and buying chocolates for guys, they're just going out and buying chocolates and getting fat, I suppose. And I mean, it is, if you want to buy chocolate, why wouldn't you go at the time when they're making all the best chocolate and there are sales and stuff like that? But yes, an article from Mainichi talking about how increasingly with people less prioritizing relationships and so on, and people prioritizing personal pursuits, you know, following their hobbies and stuff like that. For Valentine's Day, it's like, yeah, they spend their money on a date with themselves. And let's face it, that can be a pretty hot date, you know, depending on how you look at it. So I suppose that's right. Spending on Valentine's increasingly becoming people spending on things for themselves to do. The Valentine's Day economy in Japan is adjusting to this. And if you think that this is weird, if you think this is Japanese, you know, not having sex at all, but also buying underwear from vending machines and, you know, marrying waifu pillows and virtual AI dolls. And if you think this is Japan being weird, no, once again, this is Japan just showing you your future. So there you go. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, the song I Think I'm Turning Japanese was specifically about Valentine's Day by yourself, I suppose. That was apparently the hidden message. So they were just ahead of the time. They just saw it coming, and it's coming for everyone else, this idea at the moment. I mean, it is this thing when you live in a world where AI allows you to basically find or do anything that you want that you can imagine and occupy all of your time. Why would you share that time with anybody else? This is already kind of considered to be part of the problems behind the collapse in birth rates and marriage rates. And so many countries correlate so strongly with the increase in social media consumption and in mobile internet on high-powered phones. And, you know, and this is just based on watching TikToks and YouTube. And you can't really say that algorithmic attention grabbing stuff is getting weaker or is going away. So yeah, the idea people are going to spend more time focused on themselves or being drawn into spending time by themselves is definitely something that's going to happen elsewhere. Dan H, the problem with the modern education system is that it produces too many elites and not a balance of people with every job level and distributed wealth. Maybe a time to bring back systems somewhat similar to, was it Jibun Tosei Rei? So what's that's actually Shinbun Tosei Rei. What's the, is that Shinbun or Jibun? I don't know what that is. Dan H, maybe you can maybe you can say. Mogberry Pie is glad to be sharing that she's never been attacked by a bear, and I hope that continues. Certainly moving to Sendai, you're rolling the dice a little bit, but frankly, you're rolling the dice going anywhere in Japan. But that is a thing. I don't know. I was coming back, just thinking for a moment, forgetting about going back to the old system of, I think it's true that, well, when you have societies with too many people, when everybody has a university degree, then it kind of becomes worthless in a way, right? I mean, it certainly sets a bar that it means that there are more and more industries where you can't get into it without that. But certainly there's a problem in many developed countries where people's education has created expectations and, you know, nobody wants to do the regular jobs where it used to be. So I actually think there's kind of a thought of it that way. I don't know, Dan H. If I was sitting down talking with you one-on-one, I would question whether the modern education system has actually caused the opposite problem, which is where society typically had people who would grow up doing apprenticeships, and, you know, you'd have shoemakers and you'd have machine makers and factory workers and, you know, artisans and manufacturers. And then you'd have sort of professional and, you know, the sort of elites that were supported by a very small part of the education system, which was job training for certain sort of elite sort of professions. that were often, only the wealthy could afford university and access into those professions, which would be a way to access, higher salary. Now anybody fundamentally in most modern economies, if they're smart enough, is able to go and do a medical degree or other sort of high-paying job degrees. And now we've got a whole bunch of people who are, everybody's now through education. I think the democratization of access to education, I think, has created an expectation where everybody wants to be doing the top end jobs and no one wants to do the lower end jobs. I think that's actually the problem. Certainly, there's not a balance of people with every job level and distributed wealth. So I don't know. It's an interesting one, Dan, but I am also not going to get too distracted because we have 14 minutes left and still we have a lot of stories to talk about. Enshittification. Average price of condominiums in Tokyo tops 100 million yen. New Zealand dollars, that's $1 million. This is partly because there are specific neighborhoods in Tokyo, which are mainly selling apartments to foreign buyers in Hong Kong and Singapore and China, where those have gotten very expensive, but basically 630,000 US dollars. Man, when I came to Japan, house prices here were more expensive than in the West. Now they are way cheaper on average. The idea that you can live in a city like Tokyo and the average house price that you get a regular house here, I mean, this has gone up 30 something percent. So it's actually a massive increase. The figure jumped 34.6% from a year earlier to this. So last year in Tokyo, it was like, 30% less than this, which also resonates. I think when I look at real estate places around my house, most of the regular apartments are about 70 million yen or 60 million yen. I live in a nice inner city neighborhood as well. So yeah, you occasionally see the 100 million yen, but it's mostly around 70, 80 million yen, I guess. But the fact that the average has now jumped up to this, and there's this partly because there's a lot of foreign buyers at the moment. So it's and when you consider in Osaka, the average house price down there is, let's see, in Osaka, in the Kinki region. The Kinki region is not the region of it's not referring to the body. It is referring to a part of Japan. Kinki is basically the Kansai sort of area, but not just that. Osaka, 20 million. The average price of a of a house is 31 million yen, which is about $200,000 in Osaka, which is like Japan claims to be the number 2 city. It's really the number 3 city, but they claim to be the number 2 city. Think of this in America. You can live in one of the best cities in the world that's safe and clean. It's got great public services, public transport, decent paying jobs and everything. And the average house price down there is 200,000 US. And even Tokyo, 600,000 US. Going to New Zealand and Australia, seeing house prices, seeing America, and how some of the cities there are not as safe and they're not as nice, and how much more expensive they are. It's kind of crazy. Like Tokyo is still, although prices are going up, it still is doing pretty well, I think. That said, you're not getting the sort of house that you would get in those sorts of places. You're getting an apartment, but there we go. Sony's done a joint venture with Chinese computer monitor maker TCL to make cheaper TVs. I always think about Sony's mergers. I think that Sony started really becoming shitty in terms of being an appliance manufacturer when it acquired what became Sony Music and Sony Pictures, when they acquired the media parts of their company, which started dictating that they didn't want the stereos to be able to copy music or do anything like that anymore. And also the acquisition of Aiwa, where they started basically just gutting out the quality of they started using cheaper and less reliable forms of manufacturing for their stereos. That made it not worth the additional price that people were always happy to pay. Remember, Steve Jobs founded Apple based on Sony, where he wanted a brand that was aesthetically and from a quality perspective had this sort of premium sheen to it that everyone would want to pay just to be seen with the Sony. And he wanted Apple to be that, and it was, because that's what Sony used to be. Sony was like the Apple. It was like, if you buy a Sony, it's going to be awesome. And Sony just kind of became shit, and it became shit, frankly, under what's his face, the American chairman who came in and decided to turn them into an IP property owning and a discount manufacturing company. And they've kind of started to recover from this over the last, I would say, 15 years. I don't think that the TCL acquisition is the same as the Aiwa deal. I think this actually makes more sense. Remember, Sony still makes the screens that go into iPhones, and they still make some of the highest quality technology in terms of screens and display and so on. But it also makes sense that China can obviously manufacture this stuff, honestly, just as well and much cheaper nowadays than can be done in Japan. Even when they do it in Japan, or when Japanese companies do it, they actually get all the work done over in America. So sorry, in China. So there you go. Buying in Nagoya is very underrated city. Is Japan Monomore. I don't know. I don't think that. Yeah. I make fun of Nagoya because it's a very big city. It does have it's close to the beach. It does have positives, I suppose, but it's probably one of the cities I'm least drawn to. If I was going to live outside of Tokyo, I think first choice would be Fukuoka. Sendai is actually on the list. It's actually, as is Sapporo, even though it gets crazy cold. If I could avoid living there in winter anyway, but even winter, that's kind of cool. Like you have a proper winter. But yeah, I would say my list of places that I would live outside, Nagoya is not on the list. I could tolerate a work transfer to Osaka. I'm not sure I'd live there for lifestyle or anything like that, but Kobe is meant to be super nice. But definitely Sendai, definitely Fukuoka, definitely like Kagoshima or someplace in Miyazaki. Maybe Okinawa. Okinawa would be pretty nice if I could figure out a way to live down there. Hokuriku. I'm trying to remember the name of the city in Hokuriku, but Toyama. Toyama is meant to be amazing. So yeah, there's lots of places in Japan that I live in. Nagoya is not on the list, but it is a great city. So yeah. Dan H says the last great product of Sony was the robotic dog. To me, I've said this before, the mini disc was both the greatest. It was almost the greatest product that Sony ever made, but because they self-sabotaged it, to me, it's also the marker in the sand. It's like when Google stopped being cool when they got rid of Google Reader. And Sony stopped being cool when they decided to put disabling technology into their own mini disc recorder. But yeah, that's my take. America being America. The assassination, the guy who killed Abe. I've shared before how it's kind of crazy to me that a person who would assassinate the former prime minister of Japan because he had a tough childhood, frankly, did it, and all the media seems to say, well, yeah, he had a point, and the defense said as well he shouldn't be given more than 20 years because circumstances of his growing up in a religious cult family that's highly evangelical and scams its members, which has certain things in common with certain other religious groups that I'm not going to go into, but certainly the Unification Church has terrible practices. But this was the child of a family that lost all of its money to this religious group. And his frustration at that, he took out on Abe, who was not a member of that group. He was just a politician that sort of courted that religious group for donations. And he got assassinated for it. And basically, and here we are, even after the tone of coverage of this, which says that, well, yeah, he was kind of justified going and killing, he had very good reasons. And back in the 1930s in Japan, when like extreme right wingers were killing politicians in Japan, and people would like respect, well, this person went to so much trouble and he felt very strong. He had a very strong sense of justice when he went to assassinate Japan's democratically elected leaders. And so because of the sincerity of your nationalism, we will let you go free. And it was because the courts in Japan so endorsed the underlying grievances and motives and sense of justice of these political terrorists that they basically would let these murderers go free, which is why it became unsafe to be a democratic politician in Japan, which is how Japan became the country that it was during World War II. Japan is not quite at the stage of letting people, killers who murder people for what they claim to be very good reasons go free. Japan's not quite at that stage, but all the news media here is saying, certainly we can never forgive him for, committing a murder. But on the other hand, we should all recognize what a victim he was, and we should do everything that he, wishes for in terms of, we should actually fulfill all of his wishes with regards to the religious group that he doesn't like. And while it's true that the religious group is shitty and it shouldn't be, and it shouldn't be allowed to rip people off and ruin lives and families and all that sort of thing. The idea that you sort of could talk about that in the context of a terrorist murderer basically validates the terrorist murderer, and it kind of, it's kind of making an apology. It's being an apologist for the murder. You got to separate those conversations. They're not letting him off, and he did correctly. He did not get the death sentence. In Japan, you can only go for the death sentence if you kill more than 3 people. And some people were saying, well, since this was a former prime minister and as a political, it was a special case, so maybe they can go for the death penalty. But everyone looked at it, including the prosecutors, and there was a lot of people who wanted the death penalty for this guy. But here's the thing: in Japan, even you kill Japan's longest-serving, recently served former prime minister, you have to kill 3 people to be eligible for the death penalty. So the prosecutors asked for a full life sentence, and that is what he is getting, which is no picnic. Yeah. And there's no other outcome. And the fact that all of these news outlets were basically covering the news saying, yeah, he got a life sentence, and I guess it can't be avoided, but he really did have very good reasons, is not how you should cover a murder of anything. I mean, at the same time, I suppose you look at the news in America, people get shot and people say, well, they kind of deserved it because they were this kind of a person. It's literally, well, I guess that's different, isn't it? Because no one's saying that Abe was a bad person, but they're saying that this person was really a fighter for justice of some sort, the person who did the killing, which is kind of messed up. Anyway, yeah. In Japan, because all of the forced confessions and torture cases and stuff like that that have led to so many false convictions, the Japanese Bar Association is trying to get people being interrogated by police extra protection, like video coverage and so on. They're even getting access now to have a quasi-legal help, which is that you don't get a lawyer in the room advising you while you're under interrogation, but they will allow you to, within the same building, go and talk to a lawyer going forward. Every few hours in between the torture sessions. And the statement here is the legal association trying not to provoke the police, saying, given the spate of illegal interrogations, having a lawyer present is essential. A spate is something that happens, it's like an uptick over a short period of time. Japan has kind of had a spate of illegal interrogations over a period of about, like 150 years, about the whole time that it's had a modern constitution. Police have been torturing, false confessions out of people and getting a 99.99% conviction rate. So it's not really a spate per se, but sure, however they get it across. And saying that they're getting quasi-legal help, like not full legal help, you're just getting a kind of, that triggers me a little bit as someone who practices law. 2 minutes left. We're going to speed run the rest of this. But how many people do you have to kill in Japan before you get the death penalty? 3 is the number. And yeah, trying not to provoke the police. Well, again, the whole legal profession in Japan is a little bit beaten down in the field of criminal. And there's basically people don't have rights. If you're taken in for detention, if you're arrested by the police, bragging, being one of these people who brags, I know my rights, you're going to find out you don't have rights pretty soon. Getting taken in by the police here is the only thing worse than being taken in and detained and questioned by the police here. And I've talked about the cases before. I've talked about people. The worst case that I know directly. It wasn't my rugby club, but another rugby club was going to karaoke, and they decided to leave a guy back in the room asleep and leave him with the bill. And when the staff all came in and found out that everybody had snuck out of the karaoke room and left him to pay, and this guy was drunk and passed out, and a rugby player, he got up and started like beating up and punching the staff and running away. And while he was in the middle of a melee with the staff, somebody felt bad about leaving him there and went back to go and see, and kind of broke up the fight and apologized and pulled the guy away. But when the police came a couple of weeks later, they arrested both the guy who got up and started beating up the staff, and they charged him with aggravated robbery for trying to run out and using violence to run out to avoid paying a bill. They also put the same charge on the guy who came back to rescue him and who settled the fight. And although that person was actually the 0.001% of people who was eventually acquitted at trial, he was detained for 3 years. No access to lawyers, torture interrogated, and had to wait the whole time in prison. But from when he was detained, he was never out of custody until he was acquitted. And police often appeal those acquittals. And even when it was clear that there was no case against him, they still kept him for a few years. This is the hostage justice system that Ghosn was complaining about. But yeah, it really is a thing. Okay, its time is up, so I'm going to go faster. Is there anything else here? Oh yeah, everyone says that 2026, almost certainly there's either going to be a mega quake in Tokyo or the Nankai quake, which will cause the whole west of Japan to sink into the ocean. So, if you're worried about bears, just think about the mega quakes. Although remember, the bears might come in the middle of the mega quakes, but both of those sort of quakes are overdue. So people are saying this might be the year. Member of the opposition resigning for health reasons. Russian tourists apparently here in more numbers than ever. I hope they're checking their clothes to make sure they're not bringing in too much green, because that's how they got Crimea, was a lot of people wearing green clothes just went in there and showed up. Drones for finding bears seems good. I hope they're using drones, frankly, to go and yeah, they should be learning from Ukraine actually how to use drones right now. Poland is doing that, but everybody should be doing that. CBD is available throughout Japan, actually, as is hemp, beer, and hemp. In spite of the stigma against THC-based drugs, it is there, and there's a guide in Gaijin Pot on where you can find all your CBD stuff if you want that. And that is pretty much it. I'm going to leave it there. Oh yeah, there was a this, you have to see this. There was a demo done on how they might use drones to protect people from bears. They put bear spray on it, and they use this drone to spray a bear. Now my point is, one, the bear spray just doesn't seem to be very strong, because that bear seems completely fine to me. Also, I wonder, is that bear actually okay to begin with? I have many questions, but apparently this is a thing. So technology saves everything. The bear looks pretty friendly. It does. It's 11 o'clock. I am tired today, so I am going to go and set up the after party now. You guys, please pick the music for me, and yeah, I am going to do that, and I'm going to finish and get the hell to sleep by midnight, because I've got a big day of work tomorrow. But thank you for keeping me company as always. Aaron, thank you for sharing the link to the after party, and hope to see you over there. And yeah, thanks for keeping me company this week and every week. Remember, support the every week we do the MASH battle on Tokyo Digital Crew. Thanks for everyone who supports that. Thank you for following me on, and I'm posting more on Blue Sky lately. I'm also posting different stuff on Instagram if you're into that. So yeah, thanks for following. I'll see you all same time next week. I'm not going anywhere. In fact, next week, next week is 2.5 Oyajis. This time it's not going to be Tokyo Tonight. So look out. Back with Victor, we are planning to do a 2.5 Oyajis. We'll see what we're going to do. We're probably going to react to some more Japan-related drama stuff, so it should be a lot of fun. But now we're doing the after party, so come over to the after party, and we'll hang out for a bit. And thanks for joining me and commenting as always. Boom. Have a good one, everyone. Peace. Any stream.